this is going to be a little different. On this sketchbook session, I want to speak about my experiences being in Artist Alley, being an artist myself, drawing comic books, my own independent titles, as well as doing, from time to time, doing fan art and my take on Artist Alley. I know there's been many YouTubers who document their experiences in Artist Alley in terms of the sales and how much they made and so forth and so on, and whether the con is something that other artists should do or not. I've done New York Comic Con a couple of times. I've done Baltimore Comic Con. I've done Pittsburgh Comic Con. Now Steel City Comic Con, I think they're the same. And I also done Wizard World Philly when they had conventions going on, as well as an independent comic book convention called ColaCon. I've done that. And I did C2E2 once as well. And I think, I have some say in terms of what it means to be an artist in Artist Alley, and rather the convention promoters, the people who put the conventions together, do they really value the artist that's in Artist Alley, or are they just looking for people who could make them money? Now, granted, you can't take it away that this is a business, and I understand where they're coming from when they ask specific questions in terms of publishers, or when was the last time you had something published, what's your social media status, and so forth and so on. I understand all of that because it's a business at the end of the day, and they need to make money. But I'm starting to wonder, do the people who come to these conventions, do the patrons that come to these conventions, do they really value the artist that's behind the table? Because from my experience being in Artist Alley, I've seen many times a lot of artists who are very good at what they do, talented, and they have their own, create their own material, and they don't get anybody coming to their table. And I understand that sometimes presentation, eye contact, having engaging conversations with the patrons that's coming to the con, if they stop at your table, engage with them. Don't try to do a hard sell or nothing like that, because you never know. Some people come to the convention really just to pick up maybe a back issue or two, or maybe to get a couple of books of their favorite artists signed, and they're not expecting to really spend money on new create-own material. However, I'm starting to see that, and I can't speak about outside of the United States, but me living here in New York, I'm noticing that there's a lack of towards people who do comic books. There's not a strong fan base or patronage towards comic book artists, like maybe I would say in the 90s, early 2000s. I just don't see that. Also the 80s as well, and 70s. I could recall when I went to art and design, everybody that I attended school with, we all had the same, pretty much the same artists that we all liked. We used to talk about them, what they were working on. A lot of us would copy their style and everything. I just don't get that same feeling today. You go to a convention, all you see is just cosplayers and people dressed up, just cosplayers and movie stars and gamers and everything other than comic books. And I get it. Comic books has taken a really harsh turn in the last 20 years now, and the decline in readership, the closing down of many comic book stores also has a lot to do with just the low readership and the low turnout. On the other flip side of that, you got manga, anime, which is doing well. It's steady, it's solid, and people are really into anime more than they are into the Marvel, the DC, the Image comic books. I see a demographic where the people who's into Marvel, DC, and Image, they more from Gen X, or maybe you would say some millennials. But I don't see Gen Zs flocking to the comic book store to pick up issues of Spider-Man, Batman, whatever, or creating a pull list where the comic book store has a bunch of books that's pulled for them. And frankly, I can't even really speak too much on that because I don't really go to comic book stores like I used to, because the comic books are just not the same anymore. But Artist Alley as a whole, I don't know, it's a big investment. It's a big investment, especially if you're coming from an area that, if you're coming from the East Coast and you're going to a convention that's in the Midwest or the West Coast, it could cost money. So these are things that you got to take in consideration when you do these cons. You got to take in consideration how you're going to eat, where you're going to stay, if it's going to be a hotel or you're going to get a bunch of artists together. Maybe you get together with a couple of other artists that you know, or maybe artists that you have met on various art platforms like DeviantArt or ArtStation or Instagram or whatever, and you guys decide to do a con together and share a hotel room. If you trust one another to that extent, that's cool. A lot of artists done it. But you also got to take in consideration food, and then also the table itself, because most of these cons now, the tables used to, at one time, you'll find some cons charging $150, $300 the most. Now you got conventions charging anywhere from $475 to $500 for a table for 3 weeks, for 3 days. So you got to take all this in consideration. And then you also got to take in consideration, if you come in with original material that nobody's never seen before, and if you don't have a large following,